Hey guys, welcome back. It's good to be here again. We are now live back in Ottawa. I've had a little bit of a winter break. Today's video is all about drywall, repairing holes. We're going to go through a whole series of different kind of damage for you, because at the end of the day, you got to know how to solve this problem. Yeah, right there. Your anger management issues. We got to be able to deal with these things. We got to be able to be successful. One of the greatest ways that you can get return on investment on your property is to paint your house. But if you got hole damage, whether they're large or small, you got to be able to fix it first. And you got to be able to fix it and make your walls nice and smooth so no one else can see the damage. So today's video is all about this. We're going to solve all these problems. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to make a bit of a mess. We're going to answer your questions. And I would love to get my chat on my big screen over here, dude. Thanks. And as always, we're going to show you all the tools that you're going to need so that you can be successful as well. I'm just opening up my brand new Hawk. This is one of the tools you're going to need as a homeowner, guys. I love the Hawk versus the pan. All right. This is really quick and simple. All right. Now, the first hole we're going to deal with is obviously something like a hammer or a fist, right? Anger management issues. And the way we're going to solve this is you got to remember, every time you make damage, the hole in the back is a lot bigger than it is on the front, right? It's like getting shot in the head. Okay, little hole here, big hole here. So we're going to make a cut. We're going to use our drywall saw, or you could use a steak knife if you need to. Not a worry. Oh, that's why that hole is small. I actually went right into the stud. There we go. Okay. So step one, got to make a square. Okay. And we need to have a little bit of drywall on hand. Now, if you're a homeowner, you don't have any drywall at your house, you can go down to the local Home Depot and they sell this panel. It's a little piece of 2x2 drywall. It's a little overpriced for what you're getting, but it fits in your car just fine. All right. What's secret here is to cut your drywall, and you don't want to be using this edge here. This is a tapered edge, okay? So the drywall is 1/2 inch thick. Tapered edge is only 3/8. So you want to cut that off, because try to patch with that. It's going to be an uneven surface. Okay, we'll get rid of that right away. Now, for this, we're going to do a California patch. All right. And the goal here is take a piece of drywall that's bigger than your hole. All right. Now, we're just going to hold the back side of this. We're going to draw the shape of our hole using our knife. Okay. We're going to go underneath. Same thing. Going to draw that picture just a little bit smaller than the hole itself. And then what we're going to do, we're going to break it on that joint, and we're going to peel it off the paper from the front. Okay. There we go. Now we got a patch. The reason I like doing this is because this paper is super thin. All right. And it makes it really easy to fill that hole, and then you can apply your mud and get a great fit. So let's just take a look at what mud we're going to use today, because we're going to be going through a whole list of what we're going to call the homeowner drywall repair kit. All right. So what you're going to need to do is pick up a little bucket of this. Now you can buy it in a bucket if you got lots of work to do, or you can buy your drywall compound in powder form and mix it yourself. First of all, we're going to start with this one. We're just going to use our Hawk, and we're going to mix. There we go. We're going to take the mud that comes out of this bucket. It's all-purpose compound, comes pre-mixed, guys. All right, but you're going to see it's really thick. So what you got to do is you got to work the mud a little bit. Okay. This is how we do this. We're going to get the first California patch done. Nice and simple, nice and easy. Okay. You can be as generous as you like in this scenario. You want to force a little bit on the inside of that hole, just like that. All right. Now we're going to take our patch, stick it in said hole, press it in with the knife across the corner so that the piece that you're sticking in is the same depth as the rest of the wall. When you got it perfect, you just press it in. Okay, there we go. Now, the secret is with drywall, less is more. You want to get rid of all the extra material that's here. All right. And then you're going to get a nice little load here. You're going to feather in just around the edge of that patch. That will be what we call the first coat. Right there. Okay. Now, with all-purpose drywall compound, it's going to take about 12 to 24 hours to dry. All right. And then you're going to come back on day 2. You're going to be holding a 6-inch knife. You're going to take your compound out, and then you're going to go like this. Okay. And like this. You're going to be making that just a little bit bigger, right down the middle. And the secret to working with drywall mud is if you see the pinholes, okay, you have too much mud on the surface. So then you just take it extra off. So all the pinholes are gone. All right. And then when it's dry, you can come back and put a third coat. And for the third coat, you're going to stretch out even more. The purpose of being live, we're going to assume that it's dry. And we're going to go like this. Okay. We're all the way down here, all the way out here. And what you're going to do is put pressure on the edge of your knife. Okay, and that's how you're going to set it up. That will reduce almost all of your sanding. That's it. That's that simple. Okay, so it takes about 3 days. You get to that point. Once it's all dry, you can come back, sand it. You got to add some drywall primer, and then you can paint. Nobody wants to spend a whole week getting a whole patch. So now we're going to show you the faster way to do this. But in order to do that, I need another hole. So let's talk about a really common kind of damage. Oh, hang on a second. I need a bigger hole than that. All right. There, that's a little bit more like it. Now, again, the backside is really a mess. Yeah, I'm going to have to make this hole probably a 6x6, give or take. Let's go something like this. And this is what we're going to call as a medium-sized hole, all right? Not tiny, not too huge, but it's still going to be, the hole of this, the shape of this is going to be in between 2 studs. So you're not going to have any wood to work with. All right, so what I do in this situation is grab my pencil, you cut a piece of drywall, then you stick it over the hole, so the hole's in the middle, knowing that the backside is going to be a lot more damage than the front. Then you trace this out, because this is not the time for a California patch, okay? This is big damage. And I'll put a little arrow in here so we know which way to put it in. Because this is prone to getting damaged more than once, because you didn't have the little doorstop thingy on down there, what we're going to do is we're going to cut just on the outside of that pencil line, okay? And I'm going to show you a very robust way to patch this, so you're never going to have issues again. Okay. Now, there are 1,000 videos on the internet about how to patch a hole. There's the small side. Now there's the back side. See that? So you can't just put tape on that or put mesh on that or fill it with anything else. You've got a really weak piece of wall here. This is no good to you. You got to replace it. Now that we've cut the hole based on the size of the drywall instead of the other way around, we don't have to try to measure it and trace it and all that silliness. That's going to fit in there really, really good. The secret here is how do we add strength to this so that it won't happen over and over and over again. Now, if you're a homeowner, you may not have a lot of wood around, but you should have some scraps. If you don't, again, you can hit the Home Depot, part of your homeowner drywall repair kit. You can buy a piece of 2 by 2 foot, 1/2 inch plywood. You can cut it into little strips, all right? You can always have these handy. Now, also, well, you get a hold of this, all right? This is construction adhesive. Be careful when you're using this in your house because this stuff drips on the floor. It gets on your shoe. You go for a walk on your hardwood floor and you don't notice it until the next day. You can't take it off, ever. Learn that one the hard way. Yeah, that's right. I was working at a client's house and that actually happened. Downside is we had to replace the hardwood floor in their house. The plus side is we replaced the hardwood floor in their house. All right, now we cut the tip. We puncture the tube. Okay, now we were in business. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take a couple pieces of wood here and I'm gonna put some PL Premium and just a bit, not a huge dollop or anything, okay? Just a little bit across the top and the bottom of each of these 2 sticks. Okay, here we go. Get that out of the way. Now, I need my drywall screws. Here we are. Yeah, it's never as fast as you see in the video, is it? Here we go. Now, because we're dealing with that, we're going to take this here, hold that screw in the middle. We're going to come over, and I'm going to go corner to corner. And I'm going to screw that on. Okay. Now, because it's plywood, it holds the screw really good because it's layers of wood in different grains, okay? That's what I'm going to recommend. If you try using any other kind of material, you're going to run into issues. So use the plywood. Here we go. And the reason we're using the glue is so that the plywood isn't just held with a screw. If you only use screws and you don't have the adhesive on there, the next time that door gets kicked open, it's going to punch a hole through the wall all over again. Now, here we go. I'm just going to set that in place and then add a couple of screws. And we are good to go and get the mud ready. All right, and away we go. Beautiful. All right. Problem solved. Now, because we're going to want to do this a lot faster than over the course of 4 days, and we want it to be robust, we're going to use a different kind of mud. Stuff down here. This is a powdered mud, and it comes in a lot of different forms. So let's just talk about that real quick. When you go to the store, they're going to see a bunch of different color bags and little mini bags like this, and this is great for a single patch, okay, or maybe even a couple patches. This is called Durabond 90, all right? Do not ever use this as a homeowner. Be warned. This does not sand. This goes on like concrete, all right? So, never use that bag. This is a great one. And if you guys are down in the States and you're watching this, this is a Canadian brand, CGC. Down in the States, so you go to the Home Depot, you're going to find something called Easy Sand. That's a great product. You got 5, 20, 45, 90. I like to use the 90. It's got a hardener. It's a little slower, so it gives you more working time. But I don't mind working a little bit quick, so I'm just going to use the 45. And we're going to make this ourselves right here on the hook. Now, in order to make this, here we go. We need a little bit of water, and we need a hook. There we go, Joe. Let's do this right here in front of everybody at home. Take your 4-inch knife, okay? Plop it down in the middle, and you're going to make a little volcano. All right. Maybe I'll do this closer to the ground so you guys can get a better view, all right? How's that working? All right. Now, we're just going to pour the water in here. How much water do I need, Jeff? Well, you know, that's just experience talking. I have no idea. The point is this mud is going to soak up that water. It's going to take about a half an hour. By the time it does that, it's already hard. So you got to work it in. So we're going to scoop it and top dress it. You see it floats, but slowly starts to suck it up. So the secret here is to get this done without making a mess all over the place. You're going to do this for the first time. I'm going to suggest go down to the laundry room, do that over the laundry tub. Because if one of your walls breaks, then this stuff goes all over the place. Okay. Now we're going to mix it in the middle first, make sure it's kind of goopy. And there we are. Now we're going to fold it in. And we're going to realize that we do not have enough water here. So now we're going to have ourselves a mess. Brilliant. There we go. There we go. Yeah, buddy. We got a question?
Do you have to do anything to prime a new hawk before you use it?
Prime a new hawk?
Like to prep it for use at all? Like...
Yeah, that's what I was doing there. Sorry, guys. Probably could have explained that a little bit better earlier, but here's the deal. Let me just finish whipping this up a little bit. I'm going to need a little bit more water. The hawk, actually, I'll show you now. This is nice and thick. You see these rings? Okay. The hawk was originally designed for plaster, and it's very wet and loose. And so these little ridges are on here so that when you load up your plaster, it doesn't slide off. Okay. But drywall compound should never be that wet that it slides off. And if you're trying to work on here, these ridges catches the 4-inch knife. All right. So what we do is we just sand it for a little bit, knock those ridges down because we don't want them. After you've used your hawk a few times, the ridges are going to wear off into your mud anyway. So you might as well just get rid of them before you get started. All right. It'll drive you a little bit nuts trying to mix mud on a hawk. Watching what I'm doing here if you don't sand it first. And you'll just end up punching another hole in the wall. So might as well save you that hole. Here we go. There, that's the kind of water that we're looking for. So now we're getting a little bit of a slide on there. That's good. Nice and creamy. Now, when you're working with a hardener, you want to get the lumps out. You want to have it a little bit creamy. You want to be able to pull it across and see, you don't want to have that tearing going on. That means there's a chunk that just got wet for the first time. Okay. There we go. Work all those bumps and chunks out. Now we're ready to go. Now the first thing we want to do with this patch, just take a little bit. We want to pre-fill. We want to force it in those gaps. There's going to be gaps. They're not your enemy. Just fill them up. Here we are. Now we're just going to put a little bit extra mud on there. We're setting up. We're going to use paper tape over top of those gaps. And that's going to look like this. Comes with tape, you got options. You can go with the fiberglass mesh in this scenario, or you can go with paper. I like the paper. The reason I like paper more is because it's thinner. Requires less work to get the patch fixed without having a hump. Now, let's get rid of that. It's got a sticker on it. We're going to need about that much. What we do is really quick and simple. We're going to lay that up. Now, it has a natural crease in it, so you want the crease towards you. And just press it in, tear it off. Take the extra mud, go over the old paper, overlap all your edges. Boom. And then there we go. Okay, that's your first coat. You really want to try to use as little bit of mud as possible. Now, because this is a hardener, you can come along, same like we did before with the other paper, and you can just put your first little bit of coat on here. Make sure all the tape gets wet on the surface. See, that's dry paper. That's wet paper. Wet paper won't bubble, all right? Dry paper bubbles. There we go. Okay, and throw a little bit of mud in the middle. You've now created a ridge here, so you want to have something in the middle. Reduce your sanding, okay? Now here's a trick for you. When you're using mud on a 4-inch knife, okay, when your knife is proud off the wall like this, it leaves ridges. If you don't want to have ridges, hold the knife almost flat to the wall. That'll knock it all down and get rid of all those ridges, okay? That way you don't have to sand in between coats. So there we go. That's patch number 1. This is 45-minute mud. This is going to get rock hard relatively soon. So it's no longer any good to us. All right. Now, we got a few minutes before I go jump into the next hole. I'm going to grab a drink. Maybe take a question or two, Eric. We got any?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So I've got, I got to see what's going on over here. Why don't you just bring them up, or just ask me and I can answer them for you.
Yeah, I'm going to go off of my computer.
Okay.
So what's the shelf life for drywall?
For drywall.
Yeah, like of drywall sheets.
Okay. About 100 years if you keep it dry.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't go bad. The compound itself does go bad pretty quick though. So if you buy this bucket and you open it up, you introduce oxygen in here and contaminants, dirt. As soon as you close it, it's the moisture that's in that pail is going to react with that dirt. And if you have any mold spores in your home, your mud will go moldy within about a week. Okay. Which is why, as a homeowner, if you're going to do the occasional patch, learning how to make your own mud is really key, because you can take a bag like that, grab yourself a potato chip clip, boom. You can put that back in storage and then bring it out next year. It's not going to hurt. And that stuff will last forever.
Sweet. Another one's coming.
Mm.
What's the difference between repairing a plaster wall with drywall compound versus a basic sheetrock wall?
Okay. That's a really good question. There's a lot of confusion out there. While I'm at it, I'll answer that question with a demonstration. Okay. So plaster is a different material than drywall. For the purpose of making it easy to understand, we're going to consider that to be an oil-based product. And drywall is a water-based product, okay? So all of the modern paints and materials that we use now since 1974, 75-ish, have all been on the water-based side of the family. You get older, they go back to the plaster side of the family. So if you have plaster, just like as if you get a marker on a wall and you try to cover that up, you can paint that all day long, but it's going to keep coming through the surface, okay? You have to have an oil-based product to work with plaster. And so if you have damage on your wall and you want to repair it, then what you do, you take an oil-based primer and you put that on your damage. Once you've got an oil-based primer, which is a flat oil paint, you now have a product that bonds to your plaster and will bond to new drywall compound and new paint, all right? So that's how we just call that like a transition primer from old tech to new tech. So if you have an old house, you're going to want to have a can of Kills around, because that'll be your best friend. You can't use modern materials to patch an old wall because they don't bond, they won't dry together, and it'll just fall right off the floor. And that's the easy answer for that one.
You got a question about water damage?
Yeah, sure.
So for water damage drywall,
Yeah.
cut it out and replace it, or can you let it dry and then mud and tape?
That's a really good question. Okay, what's the best way to describe that? Okay, here we go. I'll use an old dead pencil. We're going to get some other kind of damage here in a second, but I'm going to show you this little trick. If you have water damage, okay, you can take a pencil and you can stab the wall, it'll just make a little dent. That's hard. If when you go do this, you go all the way through, that means it's wet. That's the greatest way to find out. And if you got wet drywall, you keep punching holes until you get to a good solid hardboard again, and that's where you cut. All right? That's the easiest way. Now, if it's in the ceiling, you might have a drip, and so you'll have a stain, but the water was probably going to be larger than the stain. So you're going to just keep on punching until it gives you resistance. That's when you got good drywall. That's what you cut to. That's what you replace, okay? And we'll probably have to fill those holes in just a second anyway, so that's good. All right, let's get another question up here. Yeah, Alex is right. One of the problems I got today is I keep stabbing my walls. All right.
There's been a few questions about always priming before painting versus using just painting without priming, maybe the primer plus painting.
Yeah. There really is. There's no real material on the market that doesn't require a primer. Okay, so when you go to do your paint work, if you don't prime any drywall compound, it's going to soak up so much paint. All right, you're going to risk blisters and all kinds of other issues. You're going to get flashing, which is kind of like the equivalent of you put on 2 coats of paint, but it looks like there's only 1 coat where you have the new drywall compound. It's a lot of work to go through and a lot of wasted paint. Just prime the patch first, let it dry, a couple of hours, and then you can cut and roll the whole wall again. That's the best advice. Now, if you're going to a color like this, and let's say we've got a white patch, you can either roll it, use a mini roller, get a can of Kills. You can use oil flat base paint to prime it as well. Once you've got that done, then you paint just the white patch with your color. And then when that's completely dry, give it a couple hours, then you can come back and cut and roll the whole wall to be able to finish. And that's how you get that repair done. Now, are we good for questions for now, or you got one more? Bring it on.
Someone was wondering how much pressure you should put when doing a California patch.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so California patches. Here's the pressure. 1 finger, 1 thumb. Okay, you really just want to be pressing. Okay, you're just pressing that, pushing that in. So if this is my patch, my blade is going across the patch, touching the solid wall and the solid wall, and I'm using the blade to recess it. That's how I set my depth, like that. Okay, so it's not about pressure. If you push just on the patch, you're going to push it right through the wall. So that's why you want to use the corners like that to set the depth. And then when you're taping, you always want the pressure on the outside of the knife, okay? Depending on which side you're on, all right? So you're always putting the pressure towards the outside of that circle. And that leaves the mud nice and flat in the middle, and you're never going to punch it in. If it does get pushed in, don't worry about it. Let the mud dry. You can come back a few hours later and you can take a little more compound, fill just the middle, and then you can repair it that way too. It's not going to hurt. All right. How we doing, Eric? You good for the next hole?
Yeah, we could do one more question.
All right, shoot.
Somebody was just asking about priming over existing paint if you're repainting.
Yeah, that's never an issue, right? The key is make sure your compound has been primed. The existing paint is not going to hurt. Paint generally goes on super, super thin, okay? Unless you use paint that's got all kinds of hardened thickeners in it so that it's designed to go on in 1 coat, then it gets really thick. But most quality paints out there are super thin applications, super smooth, especially the primers. You shouldn't have an issue. And you should never be able to see your patch when you're done, all right? Once the mud is all dry and you take your sanding sponge to it, which is right over here. Once you sand it, what you're going to find is that you're taking away the texture of the drywall, and it's going to change over to something super smooth. Okay, so it'll end up becoming the same texture as a smooth wall. The only time you are going to run into other issues is if you live down south and you got your textured surfaces, then let's just talk about that real quick too. If you're repairing a wall that's got like some sort of a spray-on application or a knockdown or orange peel, what you do is you actually sand the area first that you're going to end up with. So use this as your guide. Small hole, big mud. First you want to do is sand this area. Then you want to do your patch inside that sanded area. Okay, then you want to come back and do your texture repair. That's your process. All right. Here we go. Hey, welcome to the Money in the Bank. That's the membership program for everybody who wants to know. We do have a membership program here. If you've got questions, need help, you want to send us pictures, we got a Discord. So you can get in touch with me and I can actually help you out. We also got a great community of DIYers out there who are in that all the time, helping folks out. And so shout out to everybody who does that. You know who you are. We love you. We're going to find a way to say thank you down the road. All right. Lots of love. Who is throwing all of those hearts on the screen? That is so much fun. All right. Let's do the crack damage now. Because here's the thing. There's all kinds of ways to damage drywall. And one of them is an improper installation. Drives you nuts. I'm going to take the bench too, Matt, if you can get started. And Joe, we'll get you over here. We're going to get this close-up shot. It's really tricky on a camera to see this kind of damage. So let's just get up here and we'll show you. Got a little bit of flex. Is that visible to everybody? We're good with that? Okay, now, I'm going to make this really obvious, just so that everybody at home has a much easier time of seeing this. Because it's just drywall, and no, we don't have to do this in order to expose the crack. It's not like doing masonry work. I just want to make sure that's really obvious for you. We're going to explain what the problem is, and then I'll show you how to fix it, okay? Whenever you get a crack in drywall that's straight, whether it's been taped or not, okay? If it's a straight crack, it's two things. One, some guy came along, he put the mud there, he was going to tape it. Phone rang, he left the room and left the mud there, and then he came back and forgot where he was on the wall. So it just never got a paper tape, okay? Now, houses expand and contract because temperatures, humidity levels, all these things, crack shows up. Great. Now, the only way to fix that crack is to actually apply the tape that he missed. But if when you go to do this, you take your knife and you stick it in there and you find that there's paper tape, then you have a different issue. Because if there was paper tape here and it cracked, it means that it was installed improperly. So here's what I know about this. I have worked in a ton of homes that are super old. And I know that a lot of framing, especially back, let's go back 1940s, 50s, 60s before building code. They'd frame a section of wall, okay? They'd frame another section of wall, and they'd fill in a header above the door. That's how they used to do it. Now, if somebody comes along, they tear all that lath and plaster off, and they drywall the house. Or you're in somebody's basement, and they did it themselves, and they didn't know the secrets. Here's my stud finder. What you do is take a stud finder when you got a crack, and you go along, and you mark where you found wood, okay? You go to the other side, do the same thing. Okay. There we go. Now, what that tells me is that's 3 inches of wood. That means I've got 2 different pieces of wood here. All right? And I got 1 sheet of drywall installed up to this point, screwed to this wood, and this one is screwed to this block. Now, framers don't use screw guns. They use nails. So there's only 1, maybe 2 nails holding that together. All right? Inevitably what happens between moisture and temperature, there's movement in the wall. And because this is screwed to one block and this is screwed to the other block, and those blocks are attached by nails, there's movement, expansion and contraction right there at the joint. And the guy that installed the drywall did it wrong, okay? Whenever you're working like this, you always want to put your drywall on the same piece of material. And then you screw it 2 sheets to the same piece of material. That way they don't have expansion, contraction, and you don't get that crack. Now, as a homeowner, you could think, well, I could just put paper on that, it'll be fine. No, what you'll end up with is a crack that looks like this. All right? Because the paper that you put in there is not strong enough to fight the forces of expansion and contraction. And it's going to pull loose. It's going to let go. All right? So if you've got a crack like this, that's just an expansion and contraction issue. All you need is a couple of screws to fix it. Now, this is where it gets complicated, because I can grab a couple of 3-inch screws, and in truth, I could probably, because I know where the crack is, I know where the wood is, I could start here and I could throw in a screw on an angle to the other side, right? But you're taking a gamble. The gamble is there any plumbing or electrical in that area? You don't know because it's behind the wall. There's no way to know without taking a look. So, introduce Mr. Hole Saw. Because you have a stud finder, you know where the wood is, right? You got to punch a hole in this bad boy and take a look. And you always go in reverse to get started so it doesn't grab and throw you off the ladder. That's it. Okay? Now, if you are a homeowner and you hire an electrician, and they're going to be running wires, they're going to put holes like this all along the ceiling and the wall so that they can drill holes through your wood and fish your wire. Hold on to these, okay? These will save your bacon because this is the perfect size drywall to patch your hole. All right? Now, we can take our drill. We can look in here. We can identify there's nothing coming through. So now we're good to go. Now we can take a screw. We want to take one here going up on an angle and the one going down on that angle. Now we have a screw holding those two pieces of wood together. They will not expand and contract. They will not pull apart, and that crack will never come back. So what we got to do is patch it up. Piece of cake. And because it is a relatively small hole, we got two options. We can cut a square, we can do another California patch, or you can just take a piece of that wood blocking from that 2x2 piece of plywood that I had you buy. Okay, you can slide it in here. Oh, there we go. And then we can just screw it to the drywall. Now, yes, you could use the glue if you want, but holes like this in this kind of location are what I call low impact zones, all right? The likelihood of somebody hitting this with any force is almost zero. So just putting in that, take your disc. It's the perfect patch. I need another screw. It would have been handy to have a few of these in my pocket today. Here we go. All right. There we go. Now we're all patched up, okay? Now, I'm going to show you how to tape this mess because it's a little bit different. You're going to need about that much. We're going to take the all-purpose compound here, just for the simplicity for today. But the same way that we did the other one, you can use your powder, make a 45-minute mud, okay? And you can get 1, 2, 3 coats in the same day that way. In order to get it to dry faster, all you got to do is grab a hair dryer, okay? Get the mud heated up on the wall. And the reason for that is because all these powders, they have a hardener compound in them, okay? And so it's a chemical reaction that's taking place over here. And as soon as you add heat to that chemical reaction, you speed it up. And so it hardens a lot faster. So if you're in a hurry and you're like, I only want to patch the hole, I want to be finished in the same day, you can patch that in the morning, hit it with a hair dryer, and about a half an hour later, you can do your second coat. Half an hour later, you can do your third coat. And then you want to give it a couple of hours to really finish drying out, okay? You can paint it the next morning, all right? It's not a perfect system, but it does save you a whole lot of aggravation. Now, just for fun, near the end of the stream, I've got a board that I put 3 different kinds of mud on it. All right, we're going to do a little comparison on the sanding of it so you have an idea. The stuff that comes in this bucket, my experience has been that it's a little harder to sand than the 45 hardener, believe it or not. Don't know why that is, but I think it is. And then we also grabbed the, a little bit of this stuff. That's dust control mud. If you ever saw that on a shelf, you're like, oh, perfect. I don't want to use mud and have sanding dust everywhere. I'm going to use that stuff because it just falls straight to the floor. It's true, it does. That much about the product claim is correct. But what they don't tell you is that it looks like junk. They have some kind of an additive in that mud that leaves pits and holes. And so we're going to sand that and show you exactly what happens, all right? So that you have an idea of what you're getting involved with. Because when you use that product and then sand it, then you have to go back with a spackling to fill all those little holes. Now, We'll talk about that at the end of the show. There we are. We're going to be putting on mud everywhere where we need it. All right. Oh, that's not very good for the camera, is it? There we go. How's that, Joe? You okay? Beautiful. Now, we're going to just set that in nice and gentle. Okay. There we go. Now you're going to hold it up there with your finger and press it in nice and tight. Okay. That side. All right. There we go. Beautiful. Now, once you've got it in, again, make sure you get the tape wet. Okay. Wet tape doesn't bubble. Dry tape always does. All right. Now, it's a round hole. I'm not going to sit here and play with it all day long. I'm going to keep my life simple. Okay. And I'm going to overlap my tape just a little bit. Okay. That's okay to do. When you have a really big hole, all right, you can actually tape over tape all you want and create a brand new surface. Okay. One of the benefits of doing it this way is that now when I come back, I can use a 6-inch blade instead of a 4, and I can just pull it all the way across. Something like this, right? And I can second coat like this and create a brand new depth all the way across that area. Okay? Right up to and including where the ceiling is if necessary, right? And then you just go with a flat knife and you take off the excess. And that eliminates the need for sanding. Gentle pressure, all right? Lots of love. That's one coat. Imagine if you're more than 4 or 5 feet away, you'll never see that after 2 coats. But for best results, always go first coat larger than the patch, second coat, bring it all the way out, plus another 3 or 4 inches. And then third coat, take it out to a foot from the patch, all the way out here, okay? And then that way, when you finish off, you've stretched all this buildup to such a degree that it doesn't cast a shadow. And that's really the secret of mud. The secret here is to stretch out your work, because this is a bump. And you stretch out that hump to something this big with very little mud and then nothing there to cast a shadow. And your eye can't focus on one end, the middle, and the other end at the same time. And so the hump that's still going to be there becomes invisible. All right. Now, let's grab a couple questions there, Eric. I'm sure there are a few after all that.
Yeah, why don't we start, Joe? Can you get a quick green bag of mud? Somebody was asking about?
Oh, the Certainteed product? Yeah, again, that's a brand. Okay, so that is a drywall compound 45. The number, generally speaking, on these bags refers to the amount of working time. It's not a perfect science, guys. So you have 5, 20, 45, and 90. That's generally how long you can work with it on the hawk like this, right? After a certain amount of time, it just becomes really rock hard. Okay, and so then you can't smooth it out. You can't apply it properly, and it won't bond anything because it's the moisture that's in the compound that creates the bond, all right? So if you're really good and really quick, and you're going to use a hairdryer and you want to get that patch going and you want to get 3 coats on before noon so you can hit the golf course, you can do what is it called? Easy Sand 5 in the States, where you can use a 5-minute CGC compound here. And that has a lot more hardener in it. And so it's really quick. You can even use warm water, throw a little salt on there. Again, salt, chemical, boom, it speeds up the reaction. And you can do 3 coats of the patch as fast as you can mix it on your hawk. All right. And that is an option. And if you want to take it a little bit slower and you're fine with doing a patch over a couple of days, but you don't want to buy a big bucket of mud or a box, then you can buy a pail like this. Okay. And then make sure you put the lid on it. Secret is, don't ever put your mud back in there. What you take out goes in the garbage. Okay. Because it gets dirty. Just fussing around on the wall, it's going to get dirt on the mud. You don't want dirt in your mud because then you can't make it smooth and creamy. All right. Okay. Hit me with another one there, Eric. I'm going to grab a drink real quick.
Yeah, so somebody was asking about a large, straight, horizontal crack in the drywall along the entire bathroom wall.
Okay, horizontal cracks. That's structural. That's a totally different beast. That's not cosmetic, okay? Drywall is a cosmetic thing. This is designed to go over your structure, so it's a paintable surface, okay? Also regulates moisture in and out of the building. But if you have a horizontal crack, that's a structural issue, okay? So that means somewhere in your building construction, if your slab on grade, your slab is cracked and something's sinking. If you're on a crawl space, you might have some deterioration, rot, mold, bugs, you know, termite. And so things are shifting and sagging. And that's when you get a horizontal crack. Or you might have drywall attached to a block, stone, or concrete wall. And the concrete wall has developed a crack, and that just translated right through. But either one of those, it's all structural. So if you have horizontal cracks, it's not time to go pick up drywall mud. It's time to call a structural engineer and get that fixed. All right. I needed my water. Here we go.
What do you do if drywall is proud on one side or more sides, but not every side? Some are proud, some are recessed, some are flush.
Gotcha. Okay. That happens for a lot of reasons. So here's the basic law. I'm going to think of this makes it easy to see. All right, let me do this. All right, let's come over here by my fancy wall art. Let's assume that we have a wall surface, and then this is your tape, or mud, or your proud drywall, okay? Now, when you go like this, you can see. That's really obvious. There's like a serious problem here, right? The trick with mud is to just stretch it out over such a huge span that when that's all filled with mud, you won't be able to see that bump anymore. Now, this is a dramatic example. I'm trying to make a point. If you're going just like this, you're going to see the bump. But if you stretch it out, you get rid of the bump, okay? You do it all the way around. So the bigger the imperfection, the wider you spread your mud out. That's the easiest way to go. So you put a little bit of mud here, you fill in all of that gap with something like a 45, and then you come back with a big blade like this, and you can just sit there and skim coat it and stretch it out. There's no bump that you're going to get from different thicknesses of drywall that's going to be insurmountable, right? So don't even worry about it. If you have a blade like this, 24-inch, you can solve any problem you're ever going to run into.
She said it was around windows.
It's around the window?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of reasons it could happen. Someone might have put drywall over top of the shims that were used to install the window. And so there's something in the way that never got screwed tight. Or there's multiple pieces of framing lumber there that aren't flush on the front. And if you need to, you can actually remove the drywall, take your electric planer, flatten all that down, and then put the drywall back if it's really bad. But some things you just can't fix with mud only. If you're going to be trimming out that window with like a casing, like a door, okay, and then this area here, it goes from 0 to a bump back to 0 again. The only way to fix that would be to take that 24-inch blade with mud and literally resurface the entire area around the entire window so that all your trim is flat. It's better just to open it up, fix the cause behind it, and then you can close it up, tape it, and fix just the little spot instead of trying to resurface your entire wall. All right, buddy.
There's a super chat, should be on your screen.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, we got some Anthony. Cheers, buddy. Little gift here. Anthony says, hey, Jeff, my fiance wants to hire you to remove our tub and replace with new shower stall. She only trusts you. Ooh. I don't believe that. Anthony, you can do this. You can do this. I mean, actually, forget Anthony. Your fiance can do this. That's not that tricky. If you want to remove a tub and replace with a new shower stall, here's the secret. Most tubs are standard. It's going to be 5 foot 60 inch. And they actually sell new shower stalls that are exactly the same dimension, different widths. Okay. And I would recommend getting the tile ready shower stall because it's guaranteed to never leak, right? It's a one mold. So you don't have gaps and cracks. There's no technology. There's no learning curve to installing that. And you can tile that. Now, if you want to just go with something like an acrylic shower pan, you could do that too. It comes with an integrated tile flange. And you put the walls on afterwards, So you have your tile flan, your new wall board. Get something like, Curdy board if you want to be really, really careful. And you can put your new plastic surround on, or you can tile that as well. But it's not that tricky. We got videos and all that stuff, guys. Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm not available to come out and take care of your project at this time. Maybe one day, but not today.
Any tips and tricks for skim coating a ceiling to hide imperfections like pitting and lumps from a previous bad install?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a whole video coming up on that. When you're working with a ceiling, you have the same rules as with a wall. The more you stretch it out, the better off you are. The difference is that you also are going to have a much easier time seeing that problem because of the way the sunlight comes through the window. In February, March, especially, the sun is low in the sky, and it'll come across and it'll cast a shadow on just about anything. So if you've got humps and bumps and lumps in your ceiling, the best way to solve that problem is actually to either cut that section out and replace it with new and do a patch, or instead of the 2-foot, get the 3-foot blade, all right? And you can really stretch that out. But the secret is stretch it out to the point where you can't see it anymore, even when the sun is low in the sky. So just around sunset, okay? And if it's on the wrong part of the house to do that, you can always take a flashlight, hold that up against the ceiling. And if you can see a shadow, then stretch it out. Every shadow you see, you're gonna have to stretch about 24 inches to get rid of it. That's the rule. So it's a lot more work, but it's the same concept.
What's the best way to address cracks between wall and ceiling where they meet?
A crack between the wall and the ceiling. Okay. Well, here's the deal. If you have a crack between your wall and ceiling, it's because of this. All right. You have drywall paper tape on the wall and on the ceiling, and it's supposed to create a bond here. It should all be set in mud. All right. The only 2, maybe 3 reasons why you get a crack. Reason number 1, somebody, when they were taping, the knife accidentally cut through the back of the paper. So they aren't bonded anymore, okay? Remember, this is called a knife. It is actually sharp, all right? It'll cut right through, so be careful. And if that happened, then the way you fix that is by getting another piece of tape, put mud on the wall and the ceiling, and then tape it again. If you have an older home built in, let's say, the early 80s, here's a really common problem. There was an entire season of construction where the mud was bad. They changed their formula, okay, and it didn't bond very well. It failed. So back in those days, air conditioning wasn't standard in homes, all right? And so there was a lot of seasons where there was moisture, especially in Ontario. If you have an old 1981 to 1983 house, you know what I'm talking about. You have a crack where the paper finishes on your wall and on your ceiling in every joint in your house, okay? So if you're buying a house, guys, from the 80s and has a fresh paint job, be careful. Somebody might have just came along with some painter's caulking and cleaned it all up, but it's all going to crack again. Just a word of warning for you, all right? That could be the issue. The only other thing is a lot of houses from before 1995, the building code didn't need as much insulation in cold climate. And so above your ceiling, you got this little bit of insulation, and you have your 2x4s that are part of your truss. And that area gets extremely cold in the wintertime. So that when the wood freezes, it expands and warps. All right. And so in some cases, what you'll see is where the framing that's above your wall in the second floor where the attic is actually lifts off the walls. Remember, they frame with nails. And so it can actually, the frost will actually get into that wood and lift it right up. And that can cause cracking all around your ceiling at your wall time as well. You usually are going to see that only on the upstairs around the attic and only in cold climate. So other than that, yeah, you might have moisture problems. If you have a leaky roof, wood will swell and you can cause crack in there too. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry if that didn't make your day. That's all bad news all the way around, isn't it?
We got a lot of people in the chat today that have purchased new homes and done a lot of the work themselves and really became independent. Yeah. And there are a lot of people thanking you. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Oh, well, guys, that's awesome. I appreciate it. it's a weird gig, right? I mean, I'm get to have the benefit of making a living helping people. That's cool. So good on you. You know, it's one thing to watch a video. It's another thing to do the task. And it's funny because we get people sending us pictures and stuff all the time of what they've done in their home. And I swear some of you guys are better at this stuff than I am. It's pretty awesome. But that's just the point, right? If you own your own home, you give a damn. And you're going to take the time to do it right. And I'll tell you, you get a better result than contractors. Speaking of which, we actually have a video coming up not too long from now that's going to talk about ROI in 2025. And it's good news. And so I'm not going to spoil that for you now, but make sure you see that thumbnail, you click on that and watch it. Because we're going to be talking a lot about that in this year, about what it is to get DIY ROI. Anyway, hey, cheers, Amanda. Welcome to Money in the Bank. Welcome to the membership. What do you say we get on to the next little couple of repairs here? Yeah? So, well, let's just deal with this one. I'm going to need a few screws for this. Here's a really common issue that a lot of you guys are going to be struggling with, and that is what we call the nail pop. Okay? Joe, can you see that okay? There we go. Okay? See that? The drywall, either the screw was in too far when they built the wall, and then somebody leaned up against it and it pops it out. You see that? Okay? Or, and that's just because once that screw head gets past the first layer of paper, there's no strength in that bond anymore. Okay? And so that kind of sucks. But the way we fix it, simple enough, is we take a screw about 1 inch below it. Okay? And then you sink this in. There we go. All right. Now, don't worry. You don't have to be concerned about hitting things. Generally speaking, we're using 1 1/4 screw. All right. And so the drywall is 1/2 inch. So there's only 3/4 inch of that screw going into the actual framing. And that means that all of the holes that are run for plumbing and electrical should be in the middle of that stud, according to code. And if it's not, they should have put a metal plate over top of it. Generally speaking, that's the way that works. All right. Very rare that's not the case. And because it's a nail pop, you know where the stud is, right? And mechanical always runs north and south in the wall, up and down. Anytime they go through the middle of a stud, if it isn't 1 1/2 inches from the surface, they've got to put a protection plate. And so using a short screw like this is going to be just fine. This is what we call a coarse thread number 6 drywall screw, 1 1/4 inch. That's the dimension. And if you wanted to have that visual, here you go. Okay. That should be in your homeowner drywall kit. Drywall screws. All right. Beautiful. Now, another thing that should be in your kit is this. This is a great little patching kit. All right. This is Drydex. This is what we call spackle. I mentioned this earlier. Not everything you do has to be with drywall mud. Okay. The little kit actually comes with these patches on here too. This is kind of fun. It's like a thick kind of paper with holes in it. All right. You got that, Joe? Beautiful. One of the benefits of that is the compound, you can actually press on it and it goes through the hole, falls in behind and creates a thicker piece of material that goes hard all at the same time. So it gives you a little bit of strength. I still say if you're going to be in an area where you're going to get doorknobs again, then you don't want to count on something like that. You want to get your plywood. But here you go. This is spackling. It's pink. There we go. Okay. And basically this stuff has a dye in it. Oh, look, I already got dirt in my mud. It has dye in it. And so what happens is it's a thicker paste. This stuff doesn't shrink as much as drywall compound. So you can generally do repairs like this in 2 applications. And the idea here, whoops, whenever you have drywall damage, you always want to use the back of your knife and make it more of a bowl, okay? So you can fill it. Here, super thick. There we are. I got a lot more in there than I needed. And the way that you can fill that up is light pressure. You want to leave a little bit more on there than what you need. There we go. Okay, and then when that dries, it turns white. And that's your cue that you can sand. And this should take about an hour, depending on how long we're here today. We may or may not be able to show that on camera. Again, these holes, same thing. Anything that's smaller than 1/2 inch, just get the spackling out. No need to add paper. Okay. Again, you're going to need 2 coats. It does shrink a little bit, so you're going to need a 2nd coat. All right. That's great. So have this handy. That lid will close up. This stuff lasts pretty good. The shelf life is a little bit rough. And you're not going to like this, but if it starts to go a little bit too dry, just spit in it. Add a little moisture. All right. Okay. Now, next, we're going to talk all the small holes that are in your house. And out you go. If anybody wants that, let me know in the comments. It's the channel colors, and I had to have a piece of art hide this. These are all a bunch of different fasteners, okay? And so what we're going to do is show you how to deal with all of these issues right now. So the first one is this little picture hook. Yep, these little wires. These are awesome, okay? If you have picture nails, you ever see those little brass hooks that's got one nail on a 45-degree angle? All these kind of holes are really small damage, right? And all you got to do is take the back end of this knife. Remember, it's got that metal edge on there. If you don't have a metal edge, throw it out and get a new one, all right? This thing will save your bacon, okay? And you just take it and make a little bit of a dent, all right? I'm going to show you a secret about how to prep a small hole. You don't need any compound. You don't need any sanding. And you can paint within about 30 minutes. Now, let's go over here. Our new secret weapon of the day. And again, this is the most common type of hole you're going to find in your house while you're prepping for paint, okay? So we're going to grab our painter's caulking, all right? And they have a few different versions of this out there. They've got a drywall, crown molding. They've got painter's caulking, 20, 30, 40 years. Some of it is siliconized, okay? Some of it's quick dry. It's a little bit harder to work with. But all we're going to do is take caulking and put a little dab there. Okay? Take your drywall knife. Cut it in half. That's it. Done. That's right. No sanding, no nothing. Just caulking. Okay? Matter of fact, I think I put a dent in here somewhere. You remember where I did that, Matt? Oh, man. Could have swore I put a dent in here somewhere. It's hard to see. Huh. Oh, there it is. I think I see it now. Yeah. You can actually take some caulking, load it up on your knife. Okay. And if you have any dents at all or any wrinkles, you're not sure, you can just go like this. Pull it tight, and now I've filled that wrinkle. Okay. This is a great little tool. So before you paint, you can go around your wall, take a flashlight out, look for any little imperfections, scratch it, use the knife nice and hard on there, good pressure, okay? You can fix it all up. Give it about 30 minutes and you're ready to paint. Caulking does not need to be primed. So you save that step as well. So if it's all minor damage, you can get away with a sheet, one tube of caulking. It costs you about $6. There's enough caulking there with a bunch of little holes in your house to really fix up your walls. Get a great result when you paint. All right. Now, I got to get this off of my knife now. Okay. Now, as for the rest of these holes, we've got a couple of different styles. I got a little cheat here. Here we go. These are a bunch of different drywall plugs that you're going to see on the market. Okay. The first one is easy. If you see the star on it, you know it's a drywall screw plug. Just undrill it. Okay, that's that kind of plug. And the only way that you can fix a hole if you do that is you take that plug, you see the star on the head. All right, we got that? Good. You remove that. You take out your trusty knife. You flip it around backwards, and you throw it in there, and you create a bowl. Again, it's a very small hole, less than ½ inch. You don't need any paper. You just take your compound and you fill that up. You can use your Drydex if you want, or you can use the regular drywall compound, same problem. This is the yellow ones, all right? These are just push in, okay? Now what I do here is these things always have a head sitting on the surface. And the hole is sometimes a little bit bigger because you have to drill a hole and push in a plug. And so the hole gets a little bit big. And so just filling it up, it's a lot more work than when you're using these corkscrew types. So what we do is we take the knife and we just cut the head off. Problem solved. Now, the hole is still relatively small because the plug is still in the wall, but we just chop the head off. We'll do it again. Okay, there we go. Now, that hole is small enough you can use your caulking trick and you don't even have to pull the mud out. This one is a different kind of beast. This is the kind, you have to use this little red thing, right? And you push in the back and then the legs go out really big. Okay, so a lot of cases, this won't come out nice. You'll have to hammer it all the way through. All right, now that one actually broke. So it's a lousy example, sorry about that. And then this one, this is the Mac Daddy. This is what I was hanging the picture on. Now, this is a great plug, carries a lot of weight. But it also, on the backside, has got these two big fins compressed and holding into the drywall. So if you try to rip that out, you're gonna make a heck of a mess. What I'm gonna suggest is realize that this is gonna become a really big hole, all right? Hammer it right in, and then you can take some mud and you can fill that up, okay? And just to show you how easy that is, let's grab our spackling. All right, there we are. Make sure everything here can be filled. All right. Now, obviously these bigger holes are going to require just a little bit more work and probably a couple of coats, all right? And that's how you set yourself up. So you do one coat, you do another coat, and then you got to come back with your sanding sponge and give them a nice smooth. And then they're done, okay? Now that we got all that done, there's one more hole I want to talk about, and it's a really, really big hole. We'll get to that in a minute, though. Eric, what do you say we, oh my goodness, we've got another person. Mikhail sent us a little love offering here. That's great. Appreciate it. He's got a question. He's got a 1967 East Coast home, okay? Full tongue and groove walls, ceilings, both sides, creaks in the wind. Engineer says it's sound, prepping for drywall. Okay, anything to check, barrier, strapping, insulation. Wow. 1967 East Coast. I'm assuming because it's all wood, I can't assume anything. Yeah, Mikhail, you're gonna have to tell me if you're in the north on the east or in the south on the east before I can advise on this. Unfortunately, get back to us and let us know. Yeah, you wanna check everything because in the 60s, there was no building code. So you're gonna have poor insulation, if any at all. Generally, when it's all wood clad, they were relying on the wood itself to be the insulator. Remember back in those days, the fuel to heat your home, like what was it, $5 a year, right? And you just let the furnace go all day long. Your house was so warm, the snow was melted around your house in the wintertime for about 3 feet away from the building. That's just the way we lived. So we run things different today. If you don't have insulation in there, you'll know. It'll be cold and expensive. But let me know, and then I can get back to you about what you should see. So give me your city or your state or something like that, and we'll follow back up. All right, Eric, what else do we got there, buddy?
Yeah, so somebody wanted to know about how to match knockdown texture.
How to match the knockdown texture? Yeah. Okay. The best product on the market for homeowners, you got to own a compressor. Okay? Go to your Sherwin-Williams store. They will have a little blue gun and a little bag that screws onto that blue gun. And it is a compound that'll fire through with an air compressor on an air hose. Okay, and it's for small repairs that get professional results. And they've got the patch in orange peel. They've got it in knockdown. They've got it in a couple of different textures. And so that is my recommendation. Everything else that's on the market looks like a patch. So if you want to really get a good result, you're going to have to spend some money, get a compressor. You can get a compressor and an air hose for like $100. Just go to Harbor Freight. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest machine, right? And then you can go and buy that kit. It's about $40 or $50 to buy the whole kit, but then you can do all your patch repairs on a textured surface and get a really professional look, okay? That's what I recommend. And welcome, Deborah, to the membership program. I'm going to have some work to do after the show, I think. All right.
Someone's asking about, can you use +3 for everything when it comes to drywall, or is it hot, +3 and topping?
Okay. So the more hardener that's in the compound, the harder it is to sand. And we're going to do that demonstration after we're done. I've got an easy sand, an all-purpose, and then the dust control mud that's been drying for a couple of days, so we're ready to go. But what you're going to find is that if you want to get a great result, you've got to use great materials, right? So the way you solve your problem with the surface and getting a good sanding is having a mud that sands easily, all right? Now, easy sand is marketing. It's not a product claim, so be careful. It has a hardener. It's going to be more work than an all-purpose compound. Plus, the all-purpose compound that come in those little blue buckets, it's not as smooth and creamy as if you go to the store and buy it in the box or in the big pail. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, okay? So know that going in. It'll help you out. The secret for this, if you want to get a really good, smooth, thin texture for your final coat, is you can actually add water to it as well and really cream it up, because it comes out a little bit thick and stiff. So if you want to make it a little softer, when you add water, it makes the surface a little softer as it dries out, makes it easier to sand, and that'll help you out, okay? But again, at the end of the day, less is more when it comes to drywall, right? Don't go using thick coats, just use a little bit of coats. All right.
What grit is your sanding block?
My grit is my sanding block. My grit is blue. This is designed for drywall, okay? You'll find it in the paint department. It even has an edge on it, so that goes into corners really, really nicely, okay? This, I think the top side is sitting somewhere around 100 grit, and the back side is more like about a 120, 140, just by the feel, okay? But at the end of the day, remember this, it's when you sand your material, whether it's spackling or drywall mud. Do we have anything we can sand yet? No, okay. In a few minutes, we'll do a demonstration with the other mud. But the secret is really, is to create a cloudy look on the surface. All right? Like this is actually ready. Let's show you the difference. Can we get really tight in here, Joe? We're going to show the difference between a good sand and a bad sand. Okay? All right. That's a bad sand because you can actually see the defined ridge. Here's a good sand. Okay, it gets more of a cloudy look. All right, there's no definitive line. It just kind of blends in and disappears. All right, and that's the difference between a good sand and a bad sand. That when you paint it, you're going to see the line. A good sand, the line disappears. It doesn't exist because you're sanding it back until the compound is filled up the texture that's in the paint. That's the crazy part. All right, and that's how you know you got a good one. So once the paint texture is filled up, and you sand it back to that, you have hardly any compound at all. That's actually just filling the texture of the paint itself. That's when you've got a good edge. Until you get to that point, you've got a line that you're going to see when you paint. There we go.
I got a great question.
Shoot.
For somebody who is looking to buy a new house, but they're afraid of having a bad remodel job, like a cheap one, a house flip situation, what kind of things can they look out for to make sure that doesn't happen?
Okay, so they're going to buy a house and they want to make sure they didn't get a cheap remodel?
They don't want to buy a house that's had a bad, cheap, quick remodel done that's going to crumble on them. Okay.
How do they avoid those problems?
Yeah.
Okay, rule number one. Don't buy anything that was built before 1974. Because that eliminates the risk of oil paint being on the wall that's been covered over with latex paint. And as soon as it gets hot and humid outside, or you start trying to do any drywall patching and the paint starts peeling off like wallpaper, then you'll know you just bought yourself a lemon. Lots of people out there don't know the difference between oil-based and latex. And so they come in there, they got an old house, they give it a paint job. They put all that latex on top of an oil paint without using a transition primer. And then the first thing that happens is you go take a shower, the steam hits the ceiling, and the ceiling starts peeling off on your head. That sucks. And it happens all the time. I get people in our membership all the time going, I was doing a wall repair and my 4-inch knife went in behind the wall and just starts peeling it off like sheets. I'm like, your house is older than 1974. Congratulations, you bought yourself a quick fixer-upper. That is a really good market, right? So if you're going to buy a house older than 74, you have oil-based paint on your surfaces. This one was a 1974. The only oil paint here was on the ceilings because they were starting to transition that out. But it was definitely in the house. And the older you get, the more of it you're going to find. Before 1970, they didn't even have latex paint. So it's all oil, guaranteed. All right? That's a good start.
Yeah, so following up on Mikhail's question, he's from northern New Brunswick. He's got a
that's cold.
Bungalow.
All right, well, there you go. So when he said East Coast, he means he's Canadian and he's from the East Coast. Yeah, well, there you go. All right, well, Mikhail, you're all tongue and groove. You're in the East Coast. Yeah, if you want to modernize that home, you're going to need to fill all those wall cavities with insulation. It probably doesn't exist. It's just really good chance. And if it does, it'll be like an R8, like a wool bat or something, okay? So if you don't want to peel all that wood off, which can be dangerous too, because sometimes it's structural. At 67, it shouldn't be. It's usually older houses. But what you can do is, if you're going to be covering it up with drywall, all right, then what you can do is you can drill holes with your hole saw, get a bit that's the same size as an blown-in insulation hose, okay? And you can just drill a series of holes near the top of your wall, all right? Just like we did over here. You can drill holes. You can buy that blown-in insulation, stick the hose in the hole, fill that whole cavity up, all right? And then before you drywall, you're going to want to install a vapor barrier, which is a plastic sheet. It's perfectly okay to put it right over top of all that wood, all right? It's not going to hurt anything at all. But you got to separate the outside from the inside with a vapor barrier in your area, neck of the woods. And what you're going to find is that that'll give you an air barrier. It'll make your house warmer. It'll get rid of the drafts. It'll be able to let you really drop that thermostat in the wintertime. And that'll bring you up to a modern standard. So 67, probably still a 2x4 house, I imagine. That'll give you up to about an R14, okay? And that's not bad. That's not bad. If you really want to go to the next level, before you add your drywall, you could actually put on rigid foam board as well, okay? And you can screw that on and use some adhesive, and you can attach your drywall with adhesive as well. And you can go to a 2-inch screw so that your drywall screw will bond your drywall to the wood behind the rigid foam. And that'll give you the ability to go all the way up to R20. It's going to make every one of your rooms a little smaller, but it all depends on your goal. All right.
One last one. We had a super chat. What's your favorite hardware store in Ottawa, Gatineau?
My favorite hardware store? Ooh. Okay. So I'm going to say Perkins Lumber in North Gore. And that's because they have their hands on the best cedar for making decks that's in the entire city. And they serve all of the region. So yeah, shop local. Shout out for that. Love those guys. They got a really awesome store. They got some guys down there that know what they're talking about. And they're going to be able to answer questions for you. And it's been a great resource for me over the years. So every time I run into a problem, I'm on the phone with those guys and they got a solution. They just know their stuff. All right. All right. Now, time for another hole. Let's make a bigger one. Right here. That's a good size hole. All right. What we're going to need for this bad boy is a bigger piece of drywall. Now, remember, this is the tapered edge. We don't want to be doing anything with the tapered edge. Okay, you got to cut that off. The first 2.5 inches or so is going to be thinner than the rest of the wall, and that's going to cause you an extra day's work. There we go. Now, same old, same old. We're going to want to, like this. There we go. This is the 2x2 panel from the Home Depot, and it costs about the same as a full sheet of drywall. But as a homeowner, if you don't have a truck, this is a great solution to all these kind of problems. All right, there we go. Now, we're going to use something you might not have ever seen before. Might have a trick here that's going to blow your absolute mind. as soon as I find my knife. All right, so there's two ways to cut drywall like this. One is with the saw. But remember, you don't know what's in that wall. So you're gonna hit a stud. You wanna go like this, get past the stud. And if you go violently, you're gonna have 8 inches of that. You can cut right through the other side. You might go through your wiring, through your plumbing. So don't recommend that. You can do two things. You can take some tape and put it on your saw and only use the tip. It's really difficult. Or you can buy yourself one of these knives. This is my knife. I've been using this for, how old am I now? Yeah, all that time. I got my first knife at 3, okay? I grew up renovating. Here we go. Now, this knife, you just put it in the drywall. There we go, and you give it a pull. Now, that is about 1/4 inch or so. So 2 pulls should go right through. There we are. Bury that bad boy. Okay? And the secret to not cutting your wires is set your knife depth to about 3/4 to 1 inch. All right? And that's it. This is how you can cut your walls out if you get a flood in your basement. This is how you can explore through your drywall. It's really quite simple. There we go. Whoop. Now, out with the old, in with the new. Now, the reason this is interesting is because big holes, all have the same problem. The frame walls every 16 inches on center. So when you get a big hole, you're going to find maybe 1 stud. And it's just not enough. You don't want to attach that to just 1 stud. And maybe you don't want to have to buy a whole sheet of plywood to cut it up into strips. There's another secret we can use. And the secret weapon here is this. All right. Now, for everybody at home, if you're down in the States, yes, we're using a lot of Canadian products here. Unfortunately, that's what we sell here in Canada. And so we actually have a list for you. You can go check out the video description later and all the different materials that you're going to find down where you're from. You can go on Amazon and you can buy drywall clip repairs, okay? They make this stuff for, oh man. Oldest thing I found one of these on was it was a condominium built in the 70s. And it was all steel frame and then concrete wall. And they actually had these clips, but they were made for the corner. And so you could put it on there and it would provide a backing for the drywall to screw to. It's pretty cool. Now, the way this works is this. Put your clip on the wall. Everywhere where you'd want to if it was wood. So you want to have one of these clips every 12 inches, give or take, right? Sorry for the squeak. That's a horrible sound, isn't it? Now, here we are. Okay, it's still a bit too far to the corner. There we go. Maybe I'm being a little aggressive here. Yeah. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit more like it. Okay, there we go. Now, even comes with its own screws, which is great. So, one of the reasons why this works so well is because you can identify where that clip is. Now, we're just going to screw it and lock it in, okay? You see all these tiny little holes. The screw finds that hole, and now you got it bonded. Metal is bonded to the drywall. Oh. Not liking that. Wherever that one is sticking into the hole too much. We're going to try that one more time. Just going to make a little adjustment here. There we go. Okay, and we're going to stick them on. These are little 1-inch screws. They're awesome. You're going to find that when you drill, if you go straight, you might hit part of the mesh and not the hole. And so when the tip finds the hole, it can pull this out into your way. So the way you fix that is you just put a bit of an angle, okay? Drilling in. What am I missing? Oh. Not a perfect science, that is for sure. Here we go. There we go. And last one. Okay. Now, when you have opportunity, whenever you have a hole, you always add a drywall screw where there's wood. Okay? Always. This is how you mark it. Remember, we put a screw every 12 to 16 inches on drywall. So when you cut something out, it may not be a screw down here at all. So always add one, and then we can go back with our panel. Here we go. And I'm going to have that hole cut the wrong size, aren't I? Yep. This is what happens when you're doing things on the fly. I made that a little bit too small, the hole. Great demonstration on how to fix that problem right here. All right. That's that, and this is that, and this is that. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Now we're going to screw from this side into that bracket. There we go. One where the wood is. Obviously, this is where we get our strength from. And then we'll finish driving all these together. Here we go. So drywall clips solve all these problems, okay? Now, Jeff, what do you do about the tabs? Grab yourself a pair of pliers, okay? These are awesome. I love these things. They come in handy. And basically, we're just going to go back and forth, and they break off. Okay. Okay. Now you can see that I'm not going to do the whole thing. I think I've done enough mudding and taping today to show you everything. Basically, make your 45, stick it in there. Now, if you don't feel comfortable using a hawk, we do have professional tools. We actually have slow mixers. We can buy bigger batches of mud for such a big hole. But as a homeowner, maybe I have another solution for you. I'm going to show you right now. Mixing bowl, okay? Something like this is going to require a fair amount of mud. All right, there we go. That'd be a good batch. We're going to need some water in here. Probably closer to the whole bottle. Yep. Okay, now, if you want, you can use your knife. Just like the drywall contractors use that silly little pan, and you can put it in here and just work that mud back and forth. Let me get it on the ground so you can see this. Okay. And you get into this paste. Now the problem is that A, it's not enough water. B, this tool is not the contour of the container. So I'm going to make this little recommendation, and some of you might think it's kind of funny, but truth is, you're at home, and you should own one of these. If you don't, 20 or 30 bucks on Amazon will give you a cheap one. usually these things come with variable speed. All right. I know this is crazy, but this is effective. And just like baking, always only go in one direction or you'll end up whipping too much air into it, okay? There we go. Now, don't lick this, okay? Resist the temptation. There we go. The coolest thing about this compound in the bowl with that mixer is that the mixing blade has the contour of the bottom of your bucket. So all of that mud is now mixed consistently, and you're not going to have a bunch of dry chunks, okay? I know, it's nuts, but it works. So here we go. Now you can have control over the environment you're working with. Put all the mud that you want on there. Paper tape the living daylights out of it. Perfect every time. All right. Oh my goodness, I know. I just have this urge to put some paper on there and I don't know why. Okay. It's that simple. Remember, if you missed the beginning of the show, always make your paper wet. There we go. Okay. Do that all 4 sides, you're done. Piece of cake. Remember, this is going to take 3 coats. So the next one, you're going to stretch out to here. One after that, you're going to stretch out to here. Okay. And then when you are all done, you sand that back. No one's ever going to know you kicked a hole in your wall. All right. I know that's crazy, but it works. All right. Let's have some more questions here, buddy.
What'd be a better prank? Making a cake with drywall mud or drywalling with frosting?
Well, what's crazy is if you got kids at home, you could actually put your patch together with the frosting and then dare them to eat it. And then you could go down and lick it off the wall, freak them right out.
We had a really great question about drywall near a bathtub that keeps getting wet.
Yeah.
He says, I think my drywaller used hot mud there. Don't recall if he put a plastic backer. And I think the problem is that it keeps getting wet and needs to be replaced.
The drywall mud near the bathroom?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, let's just go through this problem right now.
Sorry, what's the best way to patch a small piece of drywall next to a tub that gets wet and has crumbled? There isn't a stud either.
There isn't a stud?
Yeah.
Okay, so then at the beginning of this video, we showed you how to do a patch here that's going to need to be durable. We use wood blocking with an adhesive that attaches to the drywall. So when it sets up overnight, it's incredibly strong. That's kind of the goal you're looking for. You can also buy a more water-resistant drywall. Now, they don't sell it in repair size, okay, unfortunately. But one of the other solutions, I don't know if they make it very small. What would be the smallest size of curdy board you think they sell? I don't even know. Here's a little tip for you. There's only 2 reasons why the wall gets wet next to a tub. That is, A, it's leaking from the shower activity from the surface, and then the drywall is pulling the water in. Or B, your tile stops here, but the wallboard goes in behind your tile. You shower, the water goes through the grout lines, and it gets pulled in every direction, okay? And so gravity pulls the water down, it hits that flange of your shower pan or your tub, and then the water heads this way. And so then the area just outside your tile, down by the baseboard, gets really bad. Always gets soaking wet, never has enough time to recover because too many people are using that water on a regular basis. If that's the case, then the only way that you can solve that mess, start by inside the shower, buy yourself a grout sealer, and seal up all those grout lines so the water stops going in behind and finding its way out. That's a really good tip. Or number 2, when you do your repair, get yourself a more water-resistant drywall or a curdy board if you can find it. But at the end of the day, It's the curse of putting water in your home. If you can't divert it to the drain, it's going to find that escape. This is probably the most common water damage in every house in North America. And it's because we don't extend the tile past much more than where the tub is. We get this 1, 2, or 3 inches of tile, and it's never enough. It's always soaking wet, okay? And so this area here looks damaged. The baseboard gets discolored. All these things happen because we don't bring the tile out far enough to create a stable surface. They're using the wrong substrate. They're using too thick of a grout line. Builders don't seal grout, okay? They use the cheapest grout they can find, and they never put a sealer on it. So if you have water damage outside your shower, start by adding grout sealer to your shower. You'd be surprised what a difference it makes. You might get the damage again, but it's going to take 20 years. And that's long enough for you not to have to ever fix it again anyway. All right. Okay.
When to use a machine pre-mixed mud versus sheetrock 45 or 90?
Well, it all comes down to this. You can use all-purpose mud all day long for every coat. The only time you want to really consider not using it is because it sands the easiest, is if it's a time constraint issue. If you have no problem putting on a coat and letting it sit, and then tomorrow we'll do the second coat, the day after you do the next coat, and then you can sand and go, oops, it's not perfect, and then another thin coat after that. You're 4 days in, you got to let it dry, then you come back, you have the primer. Are you really in the mood to paint at that point? It's almost a week to repair a big hole. The only time you up it away from the easy sand stuff is use something that sets up so fast, like over here. This is the one that I made myself. Come on over here, Joe. Let's show the people at home. This is perfect timing, actually. So here's the all-purpose compound, all right? We're running, what, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours now? Hour 40?
Hour 40.
Okay. Here's all-purpose compound, all right? That's wet. That's brutal. Now it's kind of firmed up a little bit, but it's wet. Here's the other stuff. I can recoat that right now. Not an issue. Like, this, with the proper trowel, get one that's flat, not curved, okay? I'm an hour 40 in, and I can do a complete second coat on this bad boy. All right? And because it's a second coat, we're going to make it a little bit bigger than the first coat. And that is really the biggest advantage. Now I'm 2 coats in. And because that hardener was pressed nice and flat, I might even find that 2 coats is enough. Now, if I make the second coat with hardener another hour or so from now, that's hard. Then I can come back with all-purpose and do a skim coat, nice and tight, okay? Like use a lot of force. And then when you go to sand, all you got to do is just a little light rub, change the surface texture, and you're done. That's why you want to consider the product that's in the powder. Powder has hardener, and it sets up so you can get 2 or 3 coats in the same day and still have time to go and hit the golf course. All right. There we go. Anything else there, bud?
Yeah, I got one more. If you cut your drywall a bit short,
yep.
So the distance between the sheets is like 1 to 2 centimeters, half an inch. What's the best way to fill that gap if you can't remove or replace it?
Okay. Here's my secret weapon. Like I did over here. Let's get nice and low. Here's a good gap for you, okay? Now, when that's dry, you take your knife, you stick it all the way out, lock and load, okay? And you'll be able to come back and use that blade right up against the wall and just cut it like this. And now it's fully flat. It's also an adhesive property, so it bonds this piece to this piece, okay? And then you don't even need tape. You could literally just foam it and then mud right over top when you're done. If it was me, I'd put the paper tape anyway on a big hole, just adds a little bit more strength, but that is how you repair cracks and holes in your drywall. It's effective, especially if you've got a lot of repairs to do. 1 can will get you probably about 100 linear feet of foam, and so it really solves a lot of problems. So don't worry about it. If you got a hole, you can fix it. You can also fill it with your 45-minute compound and then paper. And if you're really concerned, your hole is a little bit too wide for that, then you can stick an extra little piece of drywall in there. All right. And you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of paper tape and overlap by half. And so this is the other thing you got to realize. This adds a lot of strength. Okay. So if you've got a hole, here, let's make another one. Right about here. Okay. I'll do a demonstration. With a 4-inch, here we go. This is a great trick. Okay. Get the crap out of the way. Mud all over this place. Okay. Take your paper, set it on that hole. Okay. Now take your back of your knife and push it into the hole. All right. Now you can fill the front. Okay. And take another piece of paper and go right over top. And what you've done there is you've made a drywall sandwich with the piece of paper and the compound. All right. That's perfect every time. Now you have paper on the back, paper on the front, and you squish the mud in the middle, just like drywall's made anyway. That's a great little cheat. I'm sure everybody's going to learn at least one trick today. I mean, why not, eh? Here we go. Love my mud in a bowl, by the way. This is kind of fun. All right. How are we doing for questions here, guys? We got any more, Eric? Melbourne, 3:43. Oh, my goodness. Well, cheers to 3:43 in the morning, and you're watching the guy do mud work. My God. All right. Okay. Well, listen, I'm good. I don't think I got anything else. So if you guys got questions, quick jump in the chat. Or we're going to call this probably pretty close to being done. And, well, there you go. Bring that on over. Thanks for reminding me. Okay. We want to do that probably somewhere where you can stand up. Matt, can you hold that up for me? I'm just going to screw it to the wall real quick. And right about, don't move. Here we go. Oh, I'm only going to get drywall. Okay, that'll be work. That'll work anyway for the purpose of what we're doing. There we go. Okay. I'm going to sand it and I'm going to scrape it. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, let's first talk about the dust control mud. Okay. At first sight, they all look the same. They're white, they're smooth, they're creamy, right? You'll notice, well, you won't notice on camera, which is why I got a trick for you, but when it comes time to sand something, just knock off the chunks, okay? Now, dust control. Watch this. All the dust goes straight down. Okay? No matter how violent I am, it all goes to the floor. It's not all over the air. So it actually works in that regard, all right? Here's the regular all-purpose, all right? This is regular all-purpose, and that's the stuff, I don't even have it here today. It comes in a big bucket. We whipped it up and we put it on. And see the difference in the sanding? That dust goes everywhere, okay? Compared to dust control, it all goes straight down. This stuff is just everywhere. But look how easy that sands. Look how, I mean, that's a really thick piece of mud. I can burn a hole right through that, no problem, okay? This one, it doesn't sand as easy, okay? Now this one, this is what we talked about, easy sand. This is the stuff with the hardener, okay? It also goes everywhere, and it does sand eventually. It's not as easy, but it's, how do I say, it's not Durabond. Durabond, you can't sand at all. So remember, Durabond, no. Easy sand is anything with a hardener. It's still sandable. Makes a dust cloud. The all-purpose stuff sands easy, makes transitions a little bit easier. And the dust control stuff, it works at controlling dust. It all goes to the floor, but I'm going to show you what I don't like it. And that's this. We have a little demonstration here. Just going to get a little bit of the all-purpose mud on my hawk. And I'm going to throw some chalk line dust in it. Okay, so that's a little more visible. And I'm going to mix this up so I get some red mud. And this is a great trick if you're doing repairs on a primed wall and you don't have access to beige mud. You can throw a little bit of your dust in there. Makes everything nice and pink. Okay? That way when you put it on the wall, you can find it later. So here's the easy sand. When I put the pink on there and I pull it tight, it comes off. There's hardly any fill going on at all. I got one little spot here is probably a scratch. The all-purpose, same thing. Sand's super smooth, right? Look at all the pinholes that's in that mud. You see all that? See this? Hardly anything, hardly anything. All those red marks, those are dents, divots, chunks that are gone. Because whatever they put in that compound, it's almost like having wax in the mud. So when you sand it, it's never smooth. No matter how much sanding you do with this stuff, it never gets smooth. So if you're doing a big project and you want dust control, it's fine. Remember, when you're done, careful, Joe. When you're done, you're going to have to come back and do another coat of something else to fill all those holes. Whether you want to use the dry decks, which is a great idea because it goes on pink and you'll see all the little holes. You're going to have to do that and then come back and sand one more time just to make sure it's smooth before you paint. Otherwise, when you're all done and you're looking at your wall, the patch with that dust control on it, you're going to see a lot of texture there and it's going to be very disappointing. And just a little word of warning, okay? Manage your expectations of using that compound. All right, here we go. There you go. That's the difference in the mud. Hopefully that helps, make a difference. You don't know what you're buying. So all-purpose compound, sand's easy. Easy sand, not as easy, but great marketing. It's sandable. Dust control, sands without a mess. Then you still have to do one more coat. That's the end of it there, guys. Appreciate it. Any other questions for me there, bud?
Yeah, I got a really good one.
All right, hit me. I got pink mud. I'm ready to go.
Someone has wood paneling glued to drywall.
Yes.
And he's removing it.
Yes.
And he's saying it's ripping off paper. It's leaving behind adhesive.
Yep.
So it's making a mess. He's wondering about should he skim coat, remove all of it and replace, or what would you do? Okay. So whenever you are removing drywall and you get the torn paper effect, okay, there's a reason why drywall has 2 layers of paper. And that is this. The brown paper by itself, when it gets moisture in it, will bubble. And so if I just put mud on that, it may not swell right away. It might. We'll give it a try. We'll see if we can get that to happen. Depends how much moisture is in the mud. All right, maybe we'll get some swelling. Maybe we won't. Okay. That's just for the demonstration. But the reason that happens is because the white paper is designed so that it won't bubble. The brown paper does. So the best thing you can do, use your 4-inch knife, get all your adhesives off. Don't worry about if the white paper gets torn. What's behind it is still strong enough, but you want to use your kills and you just want to make all your brown paper white. Okay, this is a moisture barrier now between the drywall and whatever surfacing you're going to use, your new mud compound. So you spray it with an oil spray. It dries in 5 to 10 minutes if it's kills. And then you can come back and add your mud afterwards, okay? But just adding mud, it's not doing it for me today. A lot of cases, what happens is, especially on larger surfaces, depending on the kind of damage, come back in an hour and it'll just be full of bubbles. And then it dries and it all goes away. And you think, oh, that was temporary. So you go to your job, you're done, it's all sanded, I'm ready to go. You prime your wall and then it all bubbles again. And you're like, oh, but then the paint dries and it goes away. And then you're left with a nice surface and then you go and paint and then it all bubbles again. And you're like, ah, but then it all dries and goes away. But then what happens eventually is you get a humid day and your walls are all blistered. And then you're ready to pull your hair out, which is why I look like this, because some things you got to learn the hard way, right?
just prime it first before you go and put your compound on. And you got a moisture lock, so even if it does get humid outside, it won't ever bubble on you. That's money in the bank. All right.
Yeah, so we've had a few questions about mudding on the ceiling.
Yes.
Just application of mud and sanding, is it the same as doing it on a wall?
Yeah. Here, I'll tell you what. The thing about working on a ceiling, not that ladder. I got a little bit of ceiling here just in case I had to do a demonstration. Put it right in the corner here for me, bud. Thank you very much. Awesome. All right. So mudding on the ceiling. It's not your friend. We got to deal with gravity now. So, ready for this? If you put your mud on here and you start putting pressure, this is what happens. It goes to the side and it all falls down. That's why I like working with a hawk, because this is a mud catcher. Okay. Outside of that, one little trick. Just have your hawk with you to catch the mud. There's absolutely no difference. Okay. Wall surface or ceiling surface, they both take the same thing. You're stretching things out. Ceilings usually require stretching them more. But if you're not sure, sand it back, get up there with a flashlight. If you see any shadows, you need to stretch it or fill it or sand it or something. You either got too much mud up there or not enough, or you have too sharp of an edge that didn't get sanded smooth. And that's it. Really, this is just the art of illusion. This is not about perfection. Okay, this is the art of illusion. We are literally learning how to bend the light around the mud so that when you look at it, you can't tell that it's not flat. All right? As long as you remember that, you won't be too hard on yourself. The more light you have in your room, the more perfect the wall needs to be. I'm going to be doing a video soon. We're going to show you guys how to get a level 5 finish in your home. It's going to be pretty awesome, because in order to get to perfection, which is the goal in some situations, especially with big windows. If you got a big window that faces the sunset, your ceilings have to be perfect. We're going to show you how to do that coming up soon. I'm not going to say next week. All right. It's going to be soon, as in my world soon. I'm on a construction project. This is my forever home. We're going to be fixing up all these ceilings because they're not where they should be right now. And that video will be later on, but we'll get there. All right. Do you guys? Oh, yeah. I should be promoting myself. I'm lousy at this. I'm so used to doing live shows and so focused on making sure you guys got good information that I forget to promote. We got a beam, right? You see the vaulted ceiling? This sucker, Matt and I did that on our own. No crews, no fuss, no muss. We lifted up this ceiling. That is a 14-foot pitch. We did it just the two of us, and that video is coming out on Saturday. If you want to learn how you can change the entire structure of your home, go from an 8-foot flat ceiling from 1974, tear out the walls and throw in a beam, vault your ceilings. That video is on Saturday. All my tips and tricks. It's a great system. And you know what? You could have done it yourself, man. Honestly, there's a one-person deal. You can do this one on your own. You don't even need a helper. The helper is handy when you're getting the beam delivered because Matt knew the signals. But that's about it. He didn't need me around for that at all.
All right. A couple more questions on you?
Yeah, I got questions. I'm good to go. I still got pink mud.
Mesh tape versus paper tape. Pros and cons, when to use.
All right, let's talk about it. Let's open up the mesh tape just for the heck of it. Now, you have to be really, really interested in this to do it. There is no application where mesh tape, okay, is necessary. Okay, it has a self-adhesive. Once you've opened up that package, it starts to dry out. Okay, so that's the downside. You use it, you got to put it in a Ziploc bag and suck the air out or something so it doesn't dry out on you. But this stuff is self-adhesive, and all that does is it means it saves you the step of adding some mud before you put the paper on. And then when you're done, you can put your mud on it. Okay, when you pull it tight, you have texture. You don't want texture, so you can't pull it tight. You've got to leave mud on the surface of that tape. Okay, that's really the only thing. If you're going to use mesh tape, you can't use an all-purpose mud. You've got to use the powder. All right, because the all-purpose mud has a lot more moisture in it, and it will lift that off the wall while it's drying. Okay, that's the only thing. All that does is get rid of this step. Instead of mesh, I have to go mud first, and then my paper tape into the mud, okay? And then I got to make sure I wet it, because we're in a residential application here, so we don't have the fancy taping tools that run that paper through the mud and then onto the wall. Some guys actually will take the whole roll of paper and throw it in a pail with water and let it soak up for a little bit, and then they'll take it out and they'll go do their taping. But for most homeowners, that's all you got to do. Compound first, put the tape, compound second, because all you're doing there is adding enough moisture that the tape bonds properly. In this case, and they're both the same, okay? There really is no difference, except this is really, it's designed to speed things up a little bit because you're using a quick set compound. When you're using quick set, you can go with mesh. You just have to be a little bit more generous with the mud, which means you're getting a thicker profile than you do with paper, okay? So then when you look at it in the world of how big is my hump on my wall, paper tape is thin, mesh tape is thicker. So you got to stretch it out more. You end up using more mud in the process. That's really it. But for most joints, you're not even seeing them. The joints are at the ceiling, or they're in the middle of the wall where they have that tapered grooves. You're filling it in. The only time you have an issue with the mesh tape is when you go to the butt joints. That's where the half inch meets the half inch, and you're putting everything on the surface. When you're in that situation, the paper tape is thinner and it doesn't take as much mud to stretch it out, and you get a better result. In my opinion, wow, that's really quite a wall. Am I ever glad I'm not at my own home? All right.
We got a question about wallpaper. David wants to cover wallpaper on his ceiling in the bathroom.
Yes.
Wallpaper is attached really good, only a few spots in the seams where it's coming loose.
Yep.
He wants to put drywall over it. What do you recommend?
Drywall or just drywall compound?
I'm not sure exactly. It just sounds like he wants to either cover it or get rid of it. And,
yeah. Okay. We did a drywall removal video.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wallpaper removal video. It's a couple months ago that it came out. I think back in the fall or something.
Yep.
If you just go on to our homepage, guys, and you can go to the search icon, little magnifying glass, and just go drywall removal, or sorry, wallpaper removal. The more recent one will show up, but it's got some nasty green flowered wallpaper from the basement of this house. At the end of that video, we showed you how to go and actually skim surface your old wallpaper. And it's really simple. You just take your oils primer, and as soon as you've done that, you create a moisture barrier, okay? So then you can actually just do a drywall surface right over top of that once it's dry. And you can get this in an application where you can roll it on and just paint your walls with the primer first. And then you can do a smooth coat and skim coat right over wallpaper. At the end of the day, wallpaper is just paper tape with pictures on it. So there's no reason you can't leave it there. If it's bonded really well with a good adhesive, just got to protect it from moisture getting through that paper and then getting in behind it and lifting it off. And so that's what the oil-based primer is for. All right, there we go. For more details on that, you can check out that video though, because there's a few other tips and tricks that will come in handy related to that subject. And
are you familiar with Artex?
Artex?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay, someone was asking if you can skim coat over it.
Yeah, here's the bottom line. You can skim coat over anything if you prime it with flat oil. It's not always necessary, but you can. And so for giving good advice to homeowners, yeah, the answer is if you flat oil paint anything in this world, you can then use latex paint or drywall compound over the surface of it, and it'll bond to both materials and it'll work. So you don't have to worry about it.